Look at a map of the ancient world. If you want to travel from the Mediterranean Sea to the distant edges of China, or from the freezing steppes of Russia down to the warm oceans of India, you have to pass through one specific place: the Iranian Plateau. Because of its geography, Iran is the ultimate crossroads of human history. For thousands of years, this rugged, mountainous land was the beating heart of the Persian Empire, the first true superpower the world had ever seen. At its peak, the Persian Empire ruled over 44% of the entire human population on Earth. But being the crossroads of the world comes with a terrible price. Everyone marches through your land, and everyone wants to conquer it. Over the last 2,500 years, the Iranian Plateau has been invaded, burned, and conquered by some of the most ruthless military machines in history. Alexander the Great smashed the Persian armies, the Arab Caliphates swept through the deserts, and the Mongols, led by Genghis Khan, unleashed a level of destruction so apocalyptic it wiped out entire cities and turned rivers red with blood. History books tell us that empires rise and empires fall. They tell us that when a land is conquered over and over again, its original people are scattered, erased, or entirely replaced. But the DNA of modern Iranians tells a completely different story. A story that defies the violent logic of history. When geneticists began sequencing the bloodlines of the Middle East, they looked at the Iranian people and found something impossible. Despite thousands of years of endless invasions, despite the Greeks, the Arabs, the Turks, and the Mongols, the genetic baseline of Iran did not shatter. It survived. The ancient bloodline of the Persian kings is not dead. It is hiding in plain sight. Today, we are traveling into the heart of the ancient world. We are going to unearth the 10,000-year-old ghosts of the Zagros Mountains. We will decode the true stolen meaning of the word Aryan, and we will discover how the people of Iran pulled off the ultimate biological magic trick, absorbing their conquerors. If you are ready to sequence the secrets of the immortal empire, hit that subscribe button. You are watching Lost Origins. The ghosts of the Zagros. To understand the unyielding strength of Iranian DNA, we have to go back long before the first Persian kings. We have to go back 10,000 years, to the end of the last ice age. For a long time, scientists believed that the agricultural revolution, the invention of farming, happened in one specific place, the Levant, in modern-day Israel, Syria, and Jordan. From there, they assumed it spread to the rest of the world. But modern genetics has proven that human ingenuity is not a monopoly. Far to the east of the Levant, in the jagged peaks of the Zagros Mountains of western Iran, a completely different group of ancient humans made their own revolution. They were the Zagros hunter-gatherers, and they were the first people on Earth to domesticate goats. When scientists sequenced the DNA of these ancient Zagros mountain people, they found a genetic profile that was highly distinct. They were biologically separated from the farmers in the Levant by thousands of years of evolution. They were the first true locals of the Iranian Plateau, and their DNA was about to change the world. As the Zagros people mastered agriculture and animal husbandry, their population boomed. And just like the farmers in Europe and China, they began to move. But they didn't go west, they went east. The ancient DNA of the Zagros mountain people flowed out of the Iranian Plateau, crossing the deserts of Baluchistan and poured into the Indus Valley civilization. There, they mixed with ancient indigenous hunter-gatherers to help forge one of the greatest ancient societies on Earth, the Indus Valley civilization. If you trace the ancestry of almost any person living in South Asia today, from India to Pakistan, you will find the genetic echoes of those ancient Iranian goat herders. The Zagros DNA is the foundational bedrock of the East. But back on the Iranian Plateau, the Zagros people were about to receive visitors. A massive migration was heading their way from the freezing north, and these newcomers would bring with them the very name of the nation: the true Aryans. Words have power, but words can also be stolen, corrupted, and weaponized. In the 20th century, the word Aryan was hijacked by the Nazis to describe a fictional, blonde-haired, blue-eyed master race of northern Europeans. But this was a total historical and scientific lie. The true original Aryans were not from Germany, and they were not a biological master race. They were a massive group of nomadic Indo-European-speaking tribes who originated on the Eurasian steppes, the direct descendants of the Yamnaya warlords we discussed in our previous documentary. Around 3,500 years ago, a massive branch of these steppe nomads migrated southward, leaving the cold grasslands behind. They crossed the harsh mountains of Central Asia and entered the Iranian Plateau. In their ancient ancestral language, they called themselves Arya, which simply meant the noble ones. They named their new home Aryam, with no E, which over thousands of years evolved into the modern word Iran. Iran literally translates to the land of the Aryans. When the northern nomads arrived on the plateau, they did not wipe out the local Zagros mountain farmers. Instead, they merged. The genetics of modern Iranians perfectly reflect this ancient marriage. It's a deeply layered blend of the indigenous 10,000-year-old Zagros farmers mixed with the genetic signature of the nomadic Indo-Iranian tribes from the steppe. This blending created a new, powerful identity. The nomads brought the horse, the chariot, and the Indo-European language that would eventually become Persian. The locals provided deep agricultural roots and massive population centers. Together, they forged the foundation of the Persian Empire. Cyrus the Great, Darius, Xerxes. They built an empire that stretched from the borders of Greece to the Indus River. They built magnificent cities like Persepolis. They seemed invincible. Until the Skykel, the genetic sponge. Over the next 2 millennia, the Iranian Plateau suffered a series of catastrophic invasions. In the 4th century BC, Alexander the Great marched his Greek armies across the desert, burning Persepolis to the ground and shattering the Persian Empire. 1,000 years later, the Arab Caliphates exploded out of the Arabian Peninsula, bringing a new religion, Islam, and conquering the Sassanid Persian Empire. And then, in the 13th century, came the apocalypse, the Mongols. Genghis Khan and his descendants unleashed a campaign of slaughter across the Iranian Plateau that is still hard to comprehend. Historians estimate that in some regions of ancient Persia, up to 90% of the population was massacred. Whole cities were erased from the map. If you look at this history on paper, you would assume the original Persian bloodline was completely destroyed. You would assume modern Iranians are mostly Greek, Arab, or Mongolian. But when geneticists look at the DNA, they see an astonishing biological paradox. Yes, there are genetic traces of the invaders. You can find small markers of Greek ancestry. You can find traces of Arab DNA, particularly in the southwest. And you can find the genetic legacy of the Mongols, especially in groups like the Hazara in neighboring Afghanistan. But these foreign genetic signals are just a thin layer of dust on an ancient stone monument. The core genetic baseline of the modern Iranian population remains overwhelmingly continuous with the ancient people who lived there before the invasions. The vast majority of Iranian DNA still traces directly back to the indigenous Zagros farmers and the ancient Indo-Iranian nomads. How is this possible? How do you survive Alexander, the Arabs, and the Mongols without losing your genetic identity? The answer lies in the sheer demographic mass and the cultural gravity of the Iranian Plateau. Even when armies slaughtered millions, the survivors retreated into the impassable Zagros and Alborz mountains. The geography of Iran is a natural fortress. It protects its people. And more importantly, Iran acted as a genetic and cultural sponge. When foreign conquerors arrived, they were heavily outnumbered by the surviving local population. The invaders settled down, they intermarried with local Persian women, and within a few generations, their distinct foreign DNA was diluted and absorbed into the massive Iranian gene pool. The conquerors won the battles, but the Iranian DNA won the war of evolution. The people of the plateau didn't just survive their invaders, they swallowed them whole. The Zoroastrian time capsule. But if you want to find the purest, most untouched echo of the ancient Persian kings, you have to look outside of modern Iran. You have to look at a group of refugees who fled the empire over 1,000 years ago. Before the Arab conquest and the arrival of Islam, the state religion of the Persian Empire was Zoroastrianism. It is one of the world's oldest monotheistic religions, revolving around the cosmic battle between light and dark, fire and shadow. When the Arab Caliphates conquered Persia in the 7th century, the society was gradually Islamicized, but a small, devoted group of Zoroastrians refused to convert. To protect their faith and their families, they boarded ships and fled across the Arabian Sea, eventually landing on the western coast of India. In India, they became known as the Parsis, which simply means the Persians. For over 1,000 years, the Parsis lived in India, but because of their strict religious laws, they did not intermarry with the local Indian population. They only married within their small community. To a geneticist, an isolated population that never intermarries is the Holy Grail. It is a biological time capsule. When scientists sequenced the DNA of modern Parsi communities in India and Pakistan, the results were breathtaking. Their DNA does not look Indian, and remarkably, it does not entirely look like modern Iranian DNA either, because modern Iranians have experienced 1,000 years of minor genetic mixing with neighboring groups. The DNA of the Parsis is a near-perfect, frozen snapshot of what the people of Persia looked like during the Sassanid Empire, right before the Arab conquest. They are the living, breathing, genetic ghosts of the ancient Persian world. Through the Parsis, the uncorrupted bloodline of the ancient kings was preserved, not in the palaces of Persepolis, but in exile, thousands of miles away. The immortal highway. The DNA of Iran forces us to rethink everything we know about conquest and survival. We are taught that the victor writes history. We are taught that empires die when their capitals burn and their armies are defeated. But genetics reveals a much deeper, much more resilient truth. Political borders change, kings are assassinated, languages evolve, but the biological bedrock of a people is incredibly hard to erase. The Iranian Plateau has been the highway of human history for 10,000 years. It gave the world its first goat herders. It seeded the ancient civilizations of India. It welcomed the nomadic Aryans from the freezing steppes, and it absorbed the greatest, most terrifying armies the world has ever seen. The bloodline of Iran is not defined by racial purity, nor is it defined by the men who tried to conquer it. It is defined by its unyielding endurance. It is a genetic fortress that bends, absorbs, and survives. The Persian Empire may have fallen into the dust of history, but the empire of their DNA is immortal. What do you think? Did it surprise you that the original meaning of Aryan was born in Iran, not Europe, or that the genetic baseline of the Persian Empire survived the Mongol apocalypse? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to uncover the dark genetic truth about the warriors from the steppe who helped forge this ancient world, make sure to watch our documentary on the Yamna conquest right here on the screen. I am Thomas, and this is Lost Origins. Keep exploring because the past is never truly lost, it's just waiting to be sequenced.